Hey guys, we're going to look at writing linear inequalities from a graph today. It is pretty similar to writing equations from a graph. It's just this time instead of an equal sign, we will have an inequality sign. So we could have a less than or greater than or less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to sign. Okay? So like we learned how to graph them, now we're going to learn how to write the equation from it. Okay, so again, same principle as we were just looking at with inequalities and same principle as with equations and writing equations from graphs, just with a different inequality symbol. So we should still hopefully be able to identify that y-intercept and identify a slope. So 2 points on the line to find the slope. You can use the y-intercept and another point to find the slope. And then we should be able to tell, okay, is that line dashed or solid? And then whether or not the shading is above or below. And then we can use that to write our equation. So the first step is to find that y-intercept value. You can see kind of its, the steps are highlighted for you over on the left. So step 1 is to find that y-intercept. Step 2 is to find that slope. And I'll just write some helpful tips for you, right? That b value is 0, comma, y. That slope is rise over run. Be careful if it, to check and see, is it positive or negative? So I would say check sign, positive or negative. Okay. Step 3 is to check the line type. Remember, dashed line means it's going to be less than or greater than. And then, or solid line means less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. And then 4, last thing is to check the shading, which is where then the actual either greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. If y is less than or equal to, the shading is below. And then if it is greater than or equal to, the shading is above. And then your final step is to then write it in slope-intercept form, in that y equals mx plus b form. But instead of it being y equals mx plus b, it's going to be y is less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So one of those 4 instead of that equal sign. So let's look at this example number 1. The first step is to find my y-intercept. So I look and see where it crosses the y-axis right there. I'm going to go ahead and label that point. It is 0, 1. I'm going to write my b value equals 1. I could also write it as a point, 0, 1. And then I'm going to find another point in order to find my slope. I see one down here. Now all I have to do is count the rise over run. So up 1, 2, 3. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. Rise over run, so my slope is 3 over 4. I double check, okay, that is going up from left to right, so that is a positive slope. My line is dashed. And the shading is above that line. Okay, this is another one of those things. Like I said last time, it's your eyeball, right? It's what you can see. Right? It looks like I have this line that looks like it's shaded above. You're correct. It's shaded above. So when I'm writing my inequality, we write it in slope-intercept form. So y is dashed line. So it's not going to have the equal to and then shaded above, which means y needs to be greater than my 3/4 x and then plus my b value plus 1. Okay, so we can use this kind of key over here to the left, step number 4, to help us identify where the shading, okay, if it's above, it's going to be y is greater than or y is greater than or equal to, and below is the other one. Let's look at a couple more examples. So example number 2, the first thing we want to do is find the b value, find that y-intercept. I'm going to make a point at it, and I'm going to go ahead and label it here, 0, negative 3. And then when I write it down, I'll just put negative 3 as my b value. Okay, remember, these steps are things to think through. You're not always going to have these guides where you write the M value, you write the B value, you write the type of line and shading. Now, you could write all that out for you to help you identify the information, but you don't necessarily need to, right? This is kind of scaffolding you or helping you learn the process. Identify the B value, then find the slope. So find another point. I see one right there, so I'm going to use that one. There's also another one up here if I wanted to, but I'm going to count. So I went down 2 and then to the right 1. So that is a slope of -2/1 or just -2. All right, that line is solid. So that means I will have a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, and that shading is above. So when I write my inequality, I write y is greater than or equal to. Remember, above means it's going to be greater than, and the equal to is because it's a solid line. -2, which is my slope, x minus 3, my y-intercept. Let's try one more example. Okay, this one, my y-intercept is 0, goes through at the origin. And if I look at another point, I see one here. I also see one here. Okay, that's down 1 and then to the right 1. So that slope is -1/1, or we can just say it's -1. That line is dashed. And that shading is below. So when I write my inequality, that's going to be y is less than because it's dashed and because it's below. My slope is -1. I do not have to put the -1 before my x. I only have to put the negative to show that it's a -x. And then I don't have to write anything for the y value. So this is just y is less than -x. I could, however, if I wanted to, write it as y is less than -1x or -1x plus 0. However, when you see it on the STAR test, it will not have that 1 there most of the time. And so that's just the most concise way to write it, is that top one. But again, it means the same thing as that, as -1x. All right, let your teacher know if you have any questions.